Money, risk, chance. These words are all in the Bible. You know what isn't? Homer, bullpen, strike 'em out, throw 'em out. Baseball is boring and stupid. It has been played professionally for 150 years, but humans have been playing games of chance for thousands. America is a nation founded on risk-taking. Its first European settlers grew tired of living on a dumb, rainy island and risked everything, hopping on boats and betting on red, white, and blue. When they arrived, they had a moment of cultural exchange with the savage indigenous population. Fast forward centuries later, and the descendants of those risk-taking European settlers evolved the stick and ball game traditions of the natives into a fad known as baseball, while the descendants of the native tribes now own a bunch of casinos. The marriage between sports and gambling in the United States is a new one, spurred by a Supreme Court decision in 2018 that opened the floodgates to previously illegal onshore enterprises. Nowadays, sports leagues like MLB partner with sportsbooks. 80% of teams in the league are also partnered with sportsbooks. They play on TV channels named for sportsbooks, and even channels that previously had nothing to do with gambling have formed their own sportsbooks while selling their equity to sports leagues. Here's a modest proposal. Keep sports like baseball separate from gambling. Let there be a healthy amount of distance between the two activities. For the sake of our society, it's time to regulate and curb the rapid growth of baseball. The wagering world getting in bed with the sports world has had dire consequences for some. It's sad to see something as harmless as a love for gambling act as a gateway to full-on baseball addiction. There aren't enough guardrails in place to prevent that. Baseball should be regulated like tobacco, standardize the potency, tax the crap out of it, and limit advertising. There used to be ads for cigarettes on TV, thankfully not anymore, and yet gambling fans everywhere are constantly inundated with broadcasts of baseball games in between their beloved sports gambling commercials filled with their favorite celebrities. There have been some attempts to address problem baseball watchers. After a couple hours on with no interaction, televisions will often ask the viewer if they're still watching in an attempt to snap them out of a seventh-inning baseball haze. The next step? A free hotline baseball watchers can call into, projected on screen in a transparent size 2 font, ultimately directing them to resources to control their baseball problem and get back to betting like productive members of society. But it's not always so easy with gambling and baseball so intertwined. The Detroit Tigers are one of 9 teams that currently play their games on FanDuel Sports Network, an attempt to launder baseball's spotty reputation by hitching its coattails to something as esteemed as gambling. Wow, look at that run line. In 2024, their broadcast enticed innocent bettors with same-game baseball parlays. Parlays are the best type of wager. Because they are reliant on not just isolated bets, but a perfectly undisturbed chain of events, users can bet small and win big. They're also the best type of wager for sportsbooks, representing a 18% profit margin compared to only 5% for traditional individual bets. They keep FanDuel in business, but as first pointed out by Maithri Anatharaman at Defector, the parlays provided by the Tigers broadcast were almost nothing but losers in the first half of 2024. What about their second half surge? Tigers addicts were tuning in to see their boring team win boring baseball games. That September, across an 18-game sample, the team went 13-5. But if bettors followed along at home, they went just 2-16. If they bet the recommended $5 each time, they'd be down $43.50, about 9 units down on only 18 wagers. While the Tigers and their fans and their broadcasters celebrated a surprise playoff berth, the bettors were hung out to dry. Riley Green was supposedly the best hitter on the team, but he was parlay poison, single-handedly ruining otherwise correct parlays on the 4th by not scoring a run, and the 16th and 22nd by not driving one in. These are the dangers of associating gambling with baseball. Why bet on sports? You can bet on anything. You can bet on this video. Here's a parlay. This level ends with a blue screen, red screen, and purple screen. Do you like those odds? No refunds. By the end of September, the Tigers broadcast recognized that the team was unstoppable and simply made Tigers moneyline one leg of their parlay. That element worked, but the team didn't cooperate as hitters like Kerry Carpenter, Matt Vierling, Spencer Torkelson, and Parker Meadows failed to accrue 2 total bases. Of course, only a sucker would bet on who wins or who loses a baseball game, as if those things matter. One cursory glance at DraftKings for a regular season baseball game will tell you where the real money's at. Multiple home run hit, total bases, RBI, and runs scored thresholds for all 18 hitters in the starting lineup, combined strikeouts for the starting pitchers, over-unders for each team's total amount of singles, doubles, and triples, whether a grand slam will be hit or not, the inning of the first and last run of the game, the exact correct score after 7 innings. These are what gamblers need to focus on to make baseball interesting. A mid-August matchup between the White Sox and Royals generated 2,179 potential bets on DraftKings. A reasonable amount of options, especially compared to the 2,430 regular season MLB games played each year. That means baseball bettors can wager on over 5 million outcomes in any given season. That's too much. Imagine living next to an ice cream parlor with over 5 million flavors. The results would be disastrous for anyone with a sweet tooth. So to protect against this terrible addiction, we need to limit the amount of baseball, right? Instead of each team playing 162 games, maybe they play 5. Instead of playing 9 innings, maybe they play 5. Instead of 9 hitters in a lineup, maybe there's only 5. Instead of tracking all these wagerable stats, hits, singles, doubles, triples, home runs, stolen bases, strikeouts, walks, runs batted in, runs scored, total bases, etc., maybe narrow that list down to between 4 and 6. There would be fewer things in baseball to bet on, which would help gamblers become productive members of society rather than baseball-obsessed degenerates. It just shows that the interests of baseball fans and gambling enjoyers aren't aligned. Take a player like Corbin Carroll, where baseball fans see a speedy, smiley superstar, sportsbook users see his 66 potential prop bets for any given game. Will the outcome of his first plate appearance be a triple? He hits a lot of triples after all. Will he have more hits than the number 3 hitter on the opposing team? We hope so. But if Corbin Carroll goes 0 for 5 and the Diamondbacks win, he's happy, and Diamondbacks fans are happy, but anyone who bet on him to do something is sad. With baseball sweeping the nation, we've forgotten what it means to simply enjoy gambling in a vacuum. There should be recourse for ball players losing bettors' hard-earned money. In the first half of 2025, it was revealed by a ball player watchdog organization that Brent Rooker of the Athletics was part of over 16 million losing parlays for a potential profit of $2.7 billion. Again, baseball fans and experts will look at his stats and say, hey, this guy's good. But when Skunky Plays DM'd Rooker on Instagram after yet another failed parlay, he replied, "My brother, I cannot even begin to express how much I do not care." These players are the enemy. Christian Yelich accused those with gambling interests of nightly online abuse, failing to disclose his own financial abuse of bettors every time he goes 1 for 4, rather than hitting for the cycle and stealing 2 bases. Peace talks between anonymous bettors and ball players have stalled. Messages to underperforming pitchers like Lance McCullers Jr. weren't well received. The right-hander said, "I understand people are very passionate and people love the Astros and love sports, but threatening to find my kids and shake their hands is a little bit tough to deal with." Liam Hendriks reiterated his own interactions with gamblers trying to make peace. "You should shake your own hand. I wish you a happy, healthy life free from hand disease." For some, these ungrateful athletes are role models because they're good at throwing a white sphere, but what about the real heroes like Parlay Pats? In the early days of legal sports gambling proliferation, Darren Ravel wrote a glowing profile of the millionaire wunderkind with his Mercedes and chartered flights. Oh my gosh, he's so cool. Less than 2 years later, he was sentenced to 36 months probation for messages sent to 5 ball players connected to a July 2019 Rays loss to the White Sox. Messages like, "I will enter your home while you sleep and shake your hand. Everyone you love will soon have their hand shaken." And yet still no real pushback on the newly legalized relationship between sports and wagering, as if the only way to slow things down would be a bloodthirsty ball player tracking down a gambler in the parking lot and shaking their hand. Ball players who align themselves with noble gamblers quickly lose their jobs. This year, Guardians pitchers Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase are under investigation for outlier betting patterns and their propensity to throw their first pitches nowhere near the strike zone. The most famous interaction between ball players and bettors was, of course, the 1919 World Series, when White Sox players like pitcher Eddie Seacott were offered $10,000 by gamblers for a few days' work, when his team's owner was only paying him $8,000 for the whole season. Enter Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the new commissioner who banned 8 of those White Sox players for life, and several others throughout his tenure, like Giants outfielder Jimmy O'Connell in 1924. He was the last active major leaguer banned for gambling until Tucupita Marcano 100 years later. Landis saw himself as cleaning up a sport tainted by gambling interests, but of course we now know that the gambling is being tainted by sport interests. It's important to understand the context, though. 1920s America was rocked by the scandal of Teapot Dome, which is not a place where they played baseball, rather President Warren G. Harding's administration accepting bribes from oil companies. It was an era of institutional distrust. Thankfully, that distrust no longer exists today, and as a result, the current president successfully lobbied the current commissioner of baseball to reinstate Pete Rose. How much you want to bet he'll be inducted to the Hall of Fame? Rose's mistakes are still being made today. Don't associate something as pure as gambling with something as odious as baseball. The good people at DraftKings have this beautiful brick-and-mortar location in Chicago. Food, alcohol, big screen TVs, and of course, the gambling window and kiosks. This is a place of community. And yet, you know what's attached to it? A ballpark of ill repute called Wrigley Field, in such disrepair that its walls are covered in ivy. They're playing baseball 81 times a year, right next to the temple. Who's gonna go in there and flip the tables of the baseball merchants? Gambling influencers and content creators are actively promoting the sport of baseball in between their sportsbook and DFS promos, making money hand over fist by discussing exciting players and teams, further normalizing the act of watching baseball alongside gambling. One YouTuber, handsome as he may be, frequently advertises tickets to baseball games. And yet, gamblers remain a persecuted class. Look no further than Ippei Mizuhara, who was thrown in jail for borrowing $16 million from Shohei Ohtani, a man paid $700 million just to play baseball. Mind you, Ippei was just one big bet away from winning it all back. And they call him an addict, but he was working for the guy so addicted to baseball that he refuses to pick between hitting and pitching and simply does both. I believe the children are our future. Sorry, I meant to say the children are our futures. When Little League International condemned offshore wagering on its annual World Series in Williamsport, we all had the same reaction. Why are 12-year-olds playing baseball? Youth baseball participation is trending up as billion-dollar companies like Sony are devising ways to introduce the crack of the bat to your children. Look at this harmless gambling simulator. It's rated E for everyone. A child loads up the game and learns all about chance and risk and reward, unlocking cool flashy cards with in-game currency that can be bought with real-life mom's credit card money. But did you know there's an entire hidden game mode in MLB The Show in which the player actively participates in a game of baseball, learning about its rules, players, and teams, all in the hopes of winning over impressionable young minds. It's too accessible. Decades ago, baseball degens had to buy tickets and go to a physical location to see baseball played. Now it's on everyone's phones 24/7, encouraging antisocial behavior as addicts can sneak away from school, work, or church to participate. It's become so ubiquitous in such a short span, and it's still not even available in every state. Baseball's commissioner Rob Manfred wants to change that, expanding MLB franchises to more locations. Look, playing or watching baseball doesn't mean you're a bad person, but those actively participating in the rapid proliferation and normalization of dingers and web gems need to understand the consequences of their actions. Enough is enough. Baseball shouldn't be advertised on TV, it shouldn't be integrated into broadcasts, no partnerships with leagues or teams, there shouldn't be 2,000 plus baseball options every year used to build baseball parlays, and baseball addicts should have to go watch games in person rather than streaming 15 games at a time on their phones. The cat's out of the bag. We can't ban baseball, but surely we can regulate it and keep it separate from our nation's beloved pastime of gambling. Thank you to my newest patrons. To see your name here, head on over to patreon.com/foolishbaseball, and thank you to Maxo for the music.